In today's lesson, we will be discussing conversations when you meet someone for the first time. So remember that when you start a conversation, you'll use some of the phrases that we learned in the last flip. For example, hola, buenos días, or buenas tardes. If you see the conversation on the right, Juan dice, hola Miguel, ¿qué tal? Miguel dice, hola, ¿qué pasa? In review, there are two types of conversations. You can have a conversation with somebody that you are speaking formally with, and you can also have a conversation in a familiar manner. When you're having a formal conversation, that's probably with somebody that you are wishing to show respect to, maybe an elder or your teachers, or anyone that you don't know. A familiar conversation will be had with friends and peers, family, or people that you would usually call by their first name. To ask someone what is their name when you're speaking in a formal conversation, you will ask the question, ¿Cómo se llama usted? In response, that person would say, Me llamo, and then their name. In a familiar conversation, you have a very similar question. It is ¿Cómo te llamas? If you notice the only difference, the se in the formal conversation and the te in the familiar conversation, and the form of llama is a little different. In the formal question, it is llama, and in the familiar question, it is llamas. You also respond to this question, though, with me llamo. If you want to ask someone what is his or her name, you would say ¿Cómo se llama? That person might respond se llama and then their name. So what is his or her name? Her name is... So for example, in this conversation, he is asking ¿Cómo se llama? The other boy responds, oh, se llama Diana. What is her name? Oh, her name is Diana. After you meet someone, you might want to tell them nice to meet you. Now, the formal and the familiar ways of speaking are interchangeable here. You can use all of these to say nice to meet you to anybody that you're speaking to. If you are a male, you can say encantado, nice to meet you. If you're a female, you can say encantada, also nice to meet you. You can respond when someone says encantado or encantada with igualmente. This means likewise or same to you. Another way of saying nice to meet you is mucho gusto. There are two ways that you can respond to this. Igualmente, the same as encantado y encantada, which again means likewise or same to you. Or you can also say el gusto es mío, which means the pleasure is mine. If you want to ask someone who someone else is, you can say ¿Quién es? The person might respond es. So for example, in this conversation, the one girl asks the other, ¿Quién es? ¿Es Raúl? Who is that? Is that Raúl? She says, no, that's not Raúl, es Juan. Now, if you want to introduce a friend to somebody else, if you're speaking to someone formally and introducing a friend, you will say, le presento a, and then their name. So, for example, Señorita Machado wants to present her friend Ana Vega to Señor Ortega. Señorita Machado dice, le presento a Ana Vega. Señor Ortega responds, mucho gusto. And Ana says, el gusto es mío. If you want to present a friend of yours to someone that is a familiar person, you will say, te presento a, and their name. So again, this looks very similar to the formal conversation. The only difference is the le and the te. So for example, in a familiar conversation, Diana says, te presento a Esteban. Ana says, encantada, and Esteban responds with igualmente. A couple additional phrases that you'll need to know are the word sí, which means yes, no, which means no, and perdón means excuse me. Now please listen to each audio and follow along. For each conversation, decide whether it is a formal or informal conversation. Please write your responses in your notebook.
Me llamo Esteban. ¿Y tú? ¿Cómo te llamas?
Me llamo Diana.
Encantado, Diana.
Igualmente. B. Te presento a Esteban. Encantada.
Igualmente.
C.
Perdón, ¿cómo se llama?
Me llamo Raquel Daza. D.
Le presento a Ana Vega.
Mucho gusto.
El gusto es mío. F.
¿Cómo se llama? Se llama Diana.
¿Qué? ¿Se llama Miguel?
Sí, se llama Miguel Luque.